Talk about something dull, all right? Graywater. All right, so warning. This presentation does not contain anything interesting, any experiences nor illustrations of real graywater systems. This will be one man's attempt to increase the audience awareness of graywater systems and residential reuse in general. And this is the last and only thing standing between you or getting one more CEU and a beer, okay? I'm it. So you gotta hold in here, guys. All right. I'm not going to be up on that stage, so I'll be wandering around because I'll fall off of there. I walk too much. Okay. What we're going to talk about is the Graywater rules as they've come out here at the very end of 2016. Sometimes somebody will say, you've got kind of a negative spin on this thing, and maybe it's a conservative spin. I'm an engineer. Okay, by the way, for those, some of you put up with me for already 2 hours today, and you probably know who I am. But I'm Jim Prochaska with J&M Technologies, that guy's down there. And I've been in this industry for a long time. And the Graywater is kind of new. I had to do a lot of looking up, reading up on it. And basically, a lot of people don't have a real good concept of what it really is, or what it could be, or maybe what the different flavors are out there, all right? So we're going to take a look at what the state is looking at letting us do. I'm going to basically put some cautions on things. Some things are fine, but there are some things we're doing that you might say, well, we do things in, let's say, if we're going to spray water with an ATU, well, we're always making sure we're not spraying people. We're making sure it's disinfected and all those kinds of things. So we want to make sure that what we're doing is making sense even with our graywater systems, no matter how we do it. So I'm bringing to you as professionals, this is maybe what it says, but make sure you're thinking about what it ought to do, okay? Remember, these are minimum standards. Anything you see in the state regs or in the rules and stuff is always a minimum standard. You've got to make it just at least this far, okay? And then beyond that. So let's go on from there. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of reading to you, and I apologize for that, but that's the way it's going to be so we can talk about these things. So we're going to look at the 285 rule. It's in this particular chapter. We have the point 8 and the point 80 and 81. Okay, we're going to look at, there's two different parts that are important to understand that they break things apart. But let's see what we're saying when we say graywater. For the purpose of this chapter, the 285 chapter, it is defined as wastewater from showers, bathtubs, hand washing lavatories, sinks that are used for the disposal of household and domestic products. Okay? Sinks that are not used for food preparation or disposal. So that's a not in there. So we don't use where we're making the food, we're grinding the garbage grinders and all that stuff. Can't use those. And we have washing machines. Okay? That's our source water for graywater. And that's where we're going to get started. Okay? All right. And every time you'll see up here, I've got my little 285, 80 up here. And as things change, kind of pay attention to what's up there, because I'm going to be back and forth between, again, the 285 rule and the 210, and we'll look at the difference. The 210, I call it kind of the big boy rules, okay? We basically live our lives under 285, okay, with the on-site. But the 210 starts getting into the bigger flows and things of that nature, but it does have a chapter F, that's specific to this, and so we'll see how they tie together and how the language works between them. Okay, graywater does not include wastewater from washing material, including diapers, soiled with human excreta, or wastewater that comes in contact with a toilet waste, okay? So the black water kind of stuff, the things that might make black water, we don't want in our graywater system, okay? That's out of it. So we got to make sure that when we're talking about this, and I'm looking at it this way, this is a brand new rule. It really hasn't been tried out all that well. You guys out here that are designers who are going to be bringing this in, for the most part, let's say it this way. This is going to be for a lot of new construction, new subdivisions where the rules go in there saying you need that separation within the system. Okay? Kind of hard to do on a house that's already built there on a slab to go in there and say, well, I'm going to have a graywater system. Not real easy to do. Okay? You can put a rainwater system in, that's a different animal, but the graywater system. So unless you got a pier and beam house or something like that, you can get under and change the plumbing. You're really looking at new construction. So we're going to be looking at new things you're bringing to folks as we go along. Okay. Construction of a graywater system, reuse system, includes the storage and disposal systems, you must comply with this chapter, which is chapter 210 in subchapter F. And that's what I was talking about. That's the big boy rules over there of this in relating to the gray water and alternative on-site water. Okay, and we'll talk about gray water and on-site water. Gray water reuse must not create a nuisance. It must not damage the quality of the surface water or groundwater, meaning you can't go into ponds, you can't go in the river, you can't go in the lake and that type of thing when you're talking about surface waters. And you can't have it in such a way that it's seeping into the ground. Let's say you've got your wellhead here. Okay, you got the pipe coming up and all this water is gathering around and sipping down the casing and heading towards your groundwater. You can't do that. So we're not going to be getting rid of that. We're not going to be flowing it down the hole where we might have our casing at. So if gray water reuse creates a nuisance, threatens human health, damages the quality of surface of gray water, the permitting authority may take action under 285-71, and that relates to the authorization. That's where they throw the sheriff out there, okay, and shut you down. Okay, so that's where they basically can say, we can stop you once you put it in. We can come out there. Well, that goes with anything we have, okay? We make you fix a broken system as well. But in this case, we're looking at primarily there is authority to come back. Alternative water, which is part of it, we can combine these waters. We can combine our gray water, which is from our home, with the following. Okay, we're looking at rainwater, air conditioner condensate, fountain drain water, storm water, swimming pool, backwash and drain water, and reverse osmosis reject water. So those are all sources of other water that we're throwing out there, okay, generally, or they're being put into a system, and we can bring those in as part of our combined reuse system. Okay? All right. Under 285.80, no reduction in the size of the on-site facility, basically the OSSF, will be allowed when using gray water reuse systems unless the OSSF meets all the conditions and the requirements of 285.81. Isn't that neat? We just changed the turn page and all of a sudden we can do it. Okay, but there's some things. All right, but I put this little warning up here. When you start approaching that direction, when you start going down that road of making things smaller because you think you're going to save somebody some money, unless there's a really good reason, I would approach with caution. The owner and the designer need to stop and consider ramifications that a reduced size OSSF could cause. In other words, are we going to have problems with this thing? What are you thinking about? You should be starting to think about that if I'm pulling the water that is our dilution factor, our showers, our wash water from washing machines and stuff like that, what's going to happen to the sewage strength? It's going to go on up. Okay, we're going to talk about that. So keep that in mind. So that's why I'm saying approach with caution. Okay. Now this is a little comment I've got in here, so don't pay any attention to it. But it would appear that these two chapters, 85H and 210, not 270, were created to meet the apparent problems of some voting constituents. We have politics involved with this thing, okay? And there's been problems with water, right? Okay, so there's no doubt that the severe droughts of the past years have left more questions than answers, and it was time for a political, not necessarily a scientific solution. And that's my own personal feeling, okay? It's not TOWA or anybody else, but maybe not, okay? But what it is, you got to take a look at these things, okay? We've had problems, and we got some relief. Somebody said, hey, we got all this water we're throwing away. How can we use it over here? Sure, go right ahead. Other states are doing it. Why can't Texas do it? And we're not, and they're doing it basically with pretty much hands off, letting you do what you want to do, okay? Now, that does come with some concerns. So let's take a look at it. Okay, so we got waters from different mothers. Gray water and alternative on-site water. That's the two different waters, okay? They're coming from two different directions. Two kinds of water that in the past would never have met. We would not be mixing water from our basically water that typically came into our septic system and water that came off of our roof or came off of a condensate system unless it's plumb wrong. All right, we would never typically put them together. So now we can do that. We can pull them together, okay? We're going to put them in a special place, but we can pull them together, okay? The two kinds of water can now be mixed. The two kinds of water cannot be rerouted together when it rains and the tank overfills. It's just a special tank we have. So we're all happy together, but all of a sudden it comes this way. When things get this way, then they've got to go this way, okay? So yeah, that's some fancy, I would call fancy, and I don't even know what that plumbing's going to look like yet. That's going to allow you to do that. We can't have them going together. So it's not just a pipe in a tank with a pump. It's not that. So you've got to think through this thing. There's not a good scale drawing out there of all the things you need to do just yet. We're working on it. We're only about 2 months into this rule, this new revision of the rule. Okay. All right, and then the two kinds of water can now be brought into the home with little or no treatment or disinfection. And that, I think, is possibly a problem. But that's my opinion. You have to think about it when you're going in there. So toilet flushing, this is what they're talking about, making sure we've got water for doing that. But we're not doing anything necessarily other than making sure it meets a certain quality, when that quality has to do with TSS, has to do with an earlier sampling of the water to make sure biologically it's okay, but it's not a continuous sampling. Okay, we're looking at things from that point of view. So bringing that water into a home, and there's a little bit of a background. I work with rainwater systems, and I have designed big, large flow systems where we bring water back into as a utility part of the water of a facility. For instance, I did a Coast Guard station. Okay, I made darn sure, because I knew they were going to put this in the toilets, I made darn sure that that water coming out of those rainwater cisterns that we had, that water was going to be as clean as drinking water. We weren't drinking it, we're going to put it in a toilet, but I didn't want to go into the facility where people were in there. I didn't want it to have the possibility of creating any kind of a mist when you flushed and coming down. I didn't want things like Legionella and things like that possibly getting into that building, because those are the kind of things that can happen. So that's something to think about. Now, that's from the big rainwater towers. Okay, so when I saw this, I had to step back a little bit and think, okay, we got to make sure we do as the industry, we're serving the customer, that we're not violating somebody's safety, somebody's health. Okay, well, that's our job. That's our job. We don't want to violate. The rule is there to give us some room to give people the convenience, and maybe in some cases they just have to have it. All right, but we're going to let's make sure we're doing okay. Two sizes and two ways. Okay, so under the 285-80 and the 280 and the 210, I keep putting the 270, but it's wrong. It's still the 210. Graywater and Graywater, as part of a combined system, can be connected to the return of the OSSF if not being used. Now, the part that's going back, this is for a full-size system. Okay, so if we got a big ATU out there and it was sized up for our 3-bedroom home, and we took some of that water away, we can now bring that water back to it. We can't bring the rainwater with it. We can't bring the drainage water, but we can bring back the gray water because we're not using it. Maybe it's raining and the tanks are full. We have a certain level we can only keep our tanks, okay? So this is for the OSSF systems that have not been reduced from the reduction process with respect to the gray water removed. Okay, so any of that water that's not part of that, the drainage water, has to be redirected. We have to have piping that throws it back on the yard or wherever it was, down the gutter, and go away. So that's what we talk about. So that's the first size. Then under the 285-81 and 210-81, Graywater and Graywater as part of a combined reuse system, which is where we bring them together, cannot be returned to the OSSF, nor even have connections to the OSSF if the OSSF has been reduced in size. So it has no home for it now, okay? You can't put it in there. So right now, the call is for a 3-day storage tank to be installed to accommodate that water for wet times. Okay? Any questions so far? I don't know if I have an answer. Yes? Well, this one is the one that is dated December 29th, 2016. 2016. So, 3-day capacity? That's a good question, right? Yeah, but it's 3 days capacity. So Ray's that got a good chip. Well, I don't know. How much water is that? All right. There's not a chart in there yet for that one, Ray. So, all right. So under the 285-81, this allows for the reduction of the size of the OSSF that would have been installed under the old rule under 285-33. And 285-33, what is that one? Anybody know? Where are my designers? Okay, that's where we look at our normal sizing for these systems. Okay, that's our standard sizing for a regular ATU, septic tank, and all those kind of things. But in order to downsize the system, you must meet the requirements of 285-81 and 210 Chapter F, Subchapter F. Okay, and That means there's a few rules in there you got to take a look at. So you get to tune the two books, take a look at this one, take a look at that one, and come up with something that meets both standards. The OSSF with Graywater and combined reuse requires a special permit. Now, this is for the downsized one, to take advantage of the reduced system. And this is for single family, by the way, this is for single families only. This is not for a small business. This is not for a condominium with several families in it. This is for a single family resident only. Okay, so what are those numbers, can those numbers be? All right, so we kind of break it down into bites here, okay? If you just want to take the clothes washing machine and send it out to the Graywater system and you want to get credit for that, and downsize your system a little bit, we'll give you 20%. Okay? If we have showers, bathtubs, hand washing facility sinks that are not used for disposal of hazardous things, you can get 30%. Then if you want the whole banana, okay, the whole Monty here, clothes washing machine, showers, bathtubs, all the way down to the sinks for non-hazardous materials. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm guessing that's your shop sink or something like that. Okay, that you're going to get 50%. That's taking half of that water. So Ray, maybe we can figure it out that way. Okay. So that amount of water compared and mixed in with what else you're going to catch is going to be your 3-day holding. All right. The answer is that's kind of an open question right now. Okay. Got to get a plumber. Verification of plumbing. Entering the OSSF, and this is on our reduced system. So this is under, and see, remember I told you, keep an eye on what number we're on here. Okay? A licensed plumber shall evaluate and document after the plumbing is installed which sewage sources will be entering the OSSF. So if you chose, door number 1, 2, or 3, which is number 3 has everything, and that's what you said you're going to do under your permit, you're going to hire a plumber, come out here and verify that's exactly what you did. Okay, because he's the guy. Remember, we started at the edge of the house. He's the guy that starts under the house and in the house and around that. So he's going to have to bring it out and verify. Yep, that's what I did, and that's what it's hooked up to. You may have all 3 different connections already made, but did you hook them up? Okay, so he's going to be the one to come out there and tell us. So he's going to do that. He's going to write it down, stamp it, whatever he's got to do, sign it, and turn it into the regulatory agency, whoever you're dealing with. Okay, where county, whatever it might be. Oh my God, what have I done? Okay, I've got into this thing now. Now what am I going to do? So now if under the 285, 81 means the reduced systems, capturing and reusing gray water and the alternative water may have sounded like a good idea. It may make you feel green all over, but, okay, what did it do to your OSF? Okay, I think if you walk out there and meet all those guys out there, and I think everybody in the world is represented out there in the trade show, ask them for their reduced system, the one that they sell called the reduced system, and that's been NSSF standard 40 tested. Ask them if they got one. I don't think you'll find one. Can you even make a dent into reducing the BOD5 in the remaining wastewater after you've taken 20 or 30 or 50% of that out of there, and now you're left with a standard system? Okay. Who do you call and address this? Who do you call, or is this thing something that's addressed in the owner's manual from, whether it be from any of the manufacturers out there or something somebody else put together? I don't think you're going to find that. I think the answer is likely, not likely, nope, it's not going to be there. They're not going to be in there saying, oh yeah, if you take all these waters out, and then we were fine, just run it, for another 24 hours. But you only have 24 hours. It was tested over 24 hours. So, let's take a look at that. I think part of that's under the curtain, but the adjusted organic strength. This is what basically they're thinking that's going to happen to this system when we have this. Okay. So if we drop the clothes washing machine, we're thinking that the water is going to go up to a strength of about 375. That's going to be the incoming effluent strength, incoming wastewater strength. Showers and bathtubs and all the hand washing sinks without the clothes washing machine, about 430. where do we typically start? 140 mil. That's on the going outside, going into the wastewater, into your system. We're usually 250, 300 or so in there, right? Now we already jumped up there once we jumped up in this point here. So now we're at 430, and if we take take all the things that we possibly can, now we're somewhere into the 600. Okay. I mean, well, somewhere 250, 300, that's typical domestic strength wastewater. Basically, domestic strength wastewater. We start getting above that, we're starting about high strength wastewater. Get into high strength wastewater, we're talking about having to do something special to treat it, right? Okay. Any questions so far? Any revelations? Well, that's the problem is I don't have a machine to get to refer you to that can do that. Okay? It's going to be full of water. Yes, sir, Luke. Right. Probably so. Yeah, we're more concentrated. Okay? But my question is to the audience then, and to the manufacturers, do you have a protocol for that once you've done that? I don't think there is one. Normally, and I would absolutely agree with you. Normally, it's a pretty much a linear process, but that's not what the rule is looking at. Okay, so we're looking at, yes, sir.
So if we're starting at 250, 300 normally on our strength, and then now we take all our gray water off and we're at 600, you have effectively doubled the strength of your wastewater coming into your plant.
Right.
Which the logical mind says that you would then have to have a plant that could handle double what your Q is in order to deal with if you would typically use a 500 gallon per day plant at 250 to 300, now you would have to use a 1,000 gallon per day plant to deal with the double strength of the flow.
And that would be a logical assumption. Okay. But like I said, in the rule right now, all I'm saying is there's not a specific answer. I can't give you one. It's not really addressed there. You're going to have to talk to the manufacturers out here. How do they want to handle this? What do they see as the reduced? Okay? And I don't know that there's a real answer just yet. We have a rule that basically came out in the end of December. We're now early part of March. Okay? I don't think it's been tried too much yet, tested. We haven't put the vetting process together on this thing. Basically, the door is open. The rule is here, that basically how you can possibly come and do this stuff. So that's what I'm saying is we approach with caution at this point in time. Okay? Approach with caution. Not saying you can't do it, not saying it's not a good idea. You may be in Wichita Falls and that's going to be a great idea. You may be in San Angelo. I know Ray may tell us over there that they need the water. We need to bring that water out of our new construction. That may be very true. Okay? Any other questions? This is a good one for the room to talk to, and those of you guys who are manufacturers, stand up and make a comment, because I don't have the answers. I'm just a presenter. Okay, I get to lay this out before you. All right. Okay. Let's see that from here. Okay. Can somebody please save me? All right. According to the rule, under 285.81. That somebody, if you can, and this is for non-secondary treatment, okay, so this is septic tank. If you're going to go out there and rob the septic tank. If you can come up with an RS that has probably a master's or a PhD in biology, okay, or an engineer like same, who can demonstrate that the effective treatment design and supporting calculations that the proposed treatment system will reduce the effluent to a quality of 140 milligrams. Okay, the 140 milligrams is what? It's non-secondary. Okay, that's where we're supposed to start with a septic. That's what you were saying a while ago. Okay. and underground disposal. That's right, and underground disposal. Okay? So if they can come up with a way to show that, it's good in your reduction system, and you can go get your permit and go on. I don't know those people, I don't know those names right now who have the qualifications to make that decision. I'm not sure they're out there yet. Okay? But the door is open for that to happen. And that's the important part to know about this. The door is open for us to do that. Okay. So how about me? How about me meaning if I have a system that must remain at a secondary treatment level, then only a professional engineer who supposedly can figure this thing out, who has again, credentials in biological sciences and chemical engineering and things of that nature, shall demonstrate with the effective treatment design and supporting calculations that the effluent quality meets these levels under 285.32 E, subchapter E, paragraph E, of this title regarding the criteria for stewards for the sewage treatment systems. And I put in there, what about NSF 40 standard? Okay. These systems went through all kinds of testing. They spent all kinds of money to get tested up and be certified to treat standard wastewater. Now we're going to come in here and we're saying that an engineer with a smart calculator might be able to override all that and say, no, it's good. It's good. Okay. So just in case you don't remember what that little part of the 285.32E, and then basically here are the standards for a secondary system. Okay, quite a bit lower of here's our averages in here, things like this, our BOD and our TSS. And you go, whoa, that's way on down there. Okay, not the 200, 350, 400, and 600. So we got to crunch this thing some big time. Okay. And same thing if we're looking down here with the CBDOD. Okay, again, approach with caution. It's there for us to do. It's there for us to offer our customers, but we have to do it not walking in with our both eyes open. Okay, no blinders on. You don't want to sell something like this that's going to create a health hazard for your customer. Okay, don't do that to them. And that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to help them out, thinking that you're in a water pinched area, and you need the plumbing that you have the plumbing to support that. Well, then what can you possibly do? So these are the things we're doing. The Graywater side of it is not the hard part. It's what are you doing with what got left over. Okay. So anything else? Okay. Under 285.81. So what are we gonna do? So first thing we're gonna do is gonna tell the world we're gonna do this, and let them know, our neighbors and everybody else, that hey, we're gonna go and get one of these things, get one of the new fandangled Graywater systems, and we're gonna put it in our yard. So you got to get a signed affidavit. That's not a little different than in a secondary system. You have to do that anyway. Okay, when you put your ATUs in. Okay, but you'll need details in there about the contingency plan too. So when this thing gets turned off, abandoned, or anything like that, what are you going to do? Okay, what are you going to do? Okay. If you use the reduced OSSF, the disposal area, you'll need a reserve area. Now, sometimes we talk about reserve areas in the past on other systems, but you're going to have to basically set aside that land, good land, with all the setbacks, not a piece of junk. It's not under the swimming pool, and it can't be under the driveway. It can't be under the house, okay, that you're going to be able to go to and finish the system if you've abandoned this other thing. So if you've got the reduced system and you don't have the full-sized area, then you're going to have to come in here and take this thing down. So you're going to have to go in there and finish it out. And so in the beginning, in your permitting and everything else, you're going to have to draw in, if this is my reserve area, stay out of it, make sure it stays pristine and ready to go. I find this one an interesting reg. You can't apply Graywater or combined water reuse surface to a reduced effluent disposal system, or to basically to the area where it's disposing. That's kind of a interesting looking at it. Okay, you can't, basically you've already reduced it, you can't go back and throw it on and double it up anyway, and you can't do that. You can't put reuse water in a reduced OSSF. Okay, you can't put the gray water back in there. Reuse water, in the sense it's going to be the combine of the alternative waters coming in, grain water and all these things. But this time, once you're out of there, you're out of there. Okay, the gray water can't go back in there because it's a smaller system. It can't do that. Okay, so we're going to leave it out of there, and now we're going to have to hope, since there's no connections, no way else to get it in there, that you're going to be able to make it. So we'll have this our 3-day tank we talked about, and Ray had a good question: how big is the 3-day tank? I don't know. Hopefully, it's a pretty big tank. It needs to be as big as, at least for all that water you pulled out of there that you normally would be storing. But with the reality of that, once it fills up, even after 3 days, you have no more water storage to put it in. So I guess you don't take showers and you don't wash clothes anymore. I'm not sure what that's not really addressed very well. You can let the other stuff go. The rainwater, the drain water, the condensate, but you can't with the gray water, you can't be throwing that on the ground. Okay, and if you're a bad guy, and if you're convicted of abusing the system, then it can go away. The high sheriff of the TCEQ will come by and shut you down. They're there's hydraulic detention time. Yeah, but it's not. There's no volume. There's no reserve. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's for treatment. That's for treatment. Yeah. Yeah, but see, this one doesn't have a way out. It's got a plug. So once it fills up, it's filled, and you can sit there for a week. And if there's nowhere place for it to go, what are you going to do? Okay. Unlikely that these places where we're talking about are going to have these really long monsoonal kind of situations. Normally we're going to be putting things over in Ray's part of the country over there. It's a little bit drier. Okay. Wichita Falls, maybe Midland, Odessa, someplace like that where it makes sense. Waters. Okay. Any questions about these guys? Any comments? You want to make back and forth here? The floor is open to the room here. Yes, sir. Can you use the microphone, please? Right there. And hopefully somebody in the audience can answer the question, because I'm not the guy.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Basically, after you take all the gray water out, first of all, you got to have a plumber to separate the system.
Right.
Then you take all the gray water out, and the strength goes completely real high.
Yep.
Then at that point, then you have to have an RS or a PE to engineer the system?
Kind of.
Okay.
Well, basically, what we're talking about is he's got to engineer the treatment package so that when they get done. Now, the engineering part we're talking about is coming back in there and saying, okay, I've got to be able to achieve 140 out of my septic tank. Okay, I've got to be able to meet the standards for our secondary treatment before it goes out, maybe through a spray system or goes back in the ground, whatever. I've got to get back to those levels. Okay. We talked about it, Luke was up here talking about it a minute ago, that we're going to have to deal with a higher strength wastewater. We're going to have to come up with a treatment process. Okay? Now, again, the manufacturers of all the ATUs and such things that are here and all the recirculating media filters and anything else that's out here on the floor, you may want to visit with them, say, how would you approach this? Because I don't know. I personally don't know, and that's what I'm saying. This is all very brand new. This is all the early days of this rule. It was given to us, basically, given to the state of Texas, the people of the state of Texas, a way of taking some of that water and reusing it. So you're not throwing it into the septic system, because maybe in some cases, and it has been, we know that, situations where, they needed that water. I need that water to go back into the house and flush the toilet. I'm having it haul it in with a bucket already. So I'm not letting it go, okay? I remember when I was a kid growing up, and I grew up in the country, and we had a house, a pier and beam type house, and we had a grease trap, and we had a Blackwater hole, and I call them hole because they were vertical columns. One was 20 foot deep or 10 foot deep, and the other one was 50 foot deep. okay? But we had these two black hoses that as a kid I had to move around all the time, okay? One came from the washing machine, and one came from the bathroom where which is basically the bathtub and the sink in there. So I knew Graywater from that point of view. You know, because I was moving it around all the time because that was my job. I had to move it out of the way so I could mow the grass, okay? All right, so we're basically getting back to that to some degree. You can, you know, the use of it can be all kinds of things. But anyway, yes, sir. You're standing looking ready for a question. Hopefully we've got an answer.
So the idea of the BOD being much higher has been addressed, but the caustic level, the pH level, everything in that water is going to be much more reactive to the tanks themselves. So doesn't there have to be a new NSF standard for particular levels of what we're talking about, whether the tanks will withstand and hold over time?
Well, that may be true. Okay, well, NSF and ANSI standard 350 is already there for Graywater reuse. Okay, that's the one through NSF, and that would be another whole talk at another time in another hour. Okay, but NSF is here. They have a booth, and I would suggest you go over and visit with them. Okay, visit with them. And ask those questions. But theirs is not talking about and focusing on what are we going to have to do to beef up the equipment or the process of the systems we have now. It's basically looking at a system that would meet the standards for what you want to do, for instance, water reuse and that type of thing. And it's a little bit different approach. And I think it's worth looking at. We'll talk about it a little bit here shortly. Okay. So enjoy your reuse system. Understand that what having a Graywater and combined reuse system really means for the owner. You got to think about that. Make sure you understand that and make sure you've sat down with that owner. Think twice before reducing the OSSF because your backup system is missing. Now, let me ask you this. Whether it be a reduced system or not a reduced system, you still have that problem of a higher strength wastewater, okay? So you might find out that when you talk to a manufacturer here, that it might be that the OSS, from their point of view, is that no, it's going to be this big because we've got to get that much air into it. We've got to get this BOD knocked down. I don't know, okay? But they can talk to you about that. This is kind of outside of the normal things we do every day with standard wastewater. Let's say, so what I've got also in here says it's not likely that you may save any money in the end if that was your intention for the reduction, because we're already going to have to add a 3-day tank, and then we're also going to have all this special piping. We're bypassing the system when this is not working or that's not working, okay? Or just sending it off some other place. So so think about that. Make sure you've run the numbers on that, see if it's that. Now, I've got a little recommendation here. This again from me. All right, it doesn't have to do anything with rules or what's in the books. I would suggest that if you don't have this, for one thing, this water that's Graywater has been reduced and everything else. It's got to be handled in the yards correctly or handled in the piping coming back to the house correctly, okay? There are people who know how to do that. They do this kind of on a regular basis. One of them might be a Texas irrigator, a licensed Texas irrigator. The other one is the folks over at ARCSA, okay? That's the American Rainwater Catchment Systems of America. They do this all the time. Not with the wastewater thing, but they're doing reuse, capturing reuse, handling that water, filtering, doing all kinds of wonderful things to it, making it available for reuse, okay? They're already out there. So you might want to start, if you think, hey, I'm going to go that direction. I know some of you guys are already doing that, okay? So maybe this is something you can add to that part of it. But if you haven't gone to that direction, maybe that's something you want to look into. Yes, ma'am.
I just had 2 questions.
Okay.
Now, I might have been texting on my phone too much and missed a slide.
Okay.
So that's the first question.
You know, no driving and texting here, so it's all right.
I wasn't driving. Okay. If we find that I've set up the house, designed a small system, and find out my BOD is too high, can we go back and redesign and take out the old system and put in a nice giganimous system and unplumb all this plumbing? The second question, I haven't seen any of the pictures, and maybe you have. Are there any showing where there's going to be a spigot for a sampling site for your TSS and your BOD?
let's see, I'll go back to the first question. Okay. So the first question was, maybe let me answer it first from the point of view of a non-reduced system. Okay. So you're gonna approach this thing with caution. Okay. So I'm gonna take and break the plumbing up 3 different ways, maybe 4. And you say, well, that didn't work out so good. Okay. And that one's not hard to do because it's just a matter of taking the plumbing and redirecting it all back together again. So it's just, well, money is no problem. Come on. Okay, money's not the issue here. All right, convenience and doing green things and wonderful things, or having water to do anything with. Okay, so bringing the plumbing back together, and that's not necessarily going into the house and redoing. I'm just saying you got line going this direction that way. No, we just bring the line backs together, and we come back to our full size OSSF system, and we just and we go on with life. Okay, you're no worse for wear. Okay, if you have a reduced system, no, we're starting from scratch. Now they make provisions in the rule and say that you've got to have a set aside area for the basically dispersal area. Where are you going to go with the water once it's treated? When you double back over on it, but there's not really nothing talking about the system itself. Okay, so now if you got a reduced system, now you're going to have a hydraulically overcharged system, possibly. Again, get that engineer, have him come back again, pay him again, and have him figure out whether or not that's going to work this time or not. Okay, with the extra water back in the system. So, it's kind of a circle. And again, I'm not trying to make fun of this. I'm just pointing out here are the things that we've got these doors open to us. All these things have been open to us for us to look at. It's all good, but the answers are not inside that rule, okay? The answers how that's going to happen are not inside the rule. The answers are in this room. The answers are with the manufacturers. Their answers are with the good designers and engineers. They can say, hey, this is an opportunity. There's answers maybe with the folks that are already into reuse like ARCSA or something like that, and they say, we can add this to what we do. You won't take away from it, okay? The second question was... sampling connections. That's going to be no, I don't have anything on that, nor is there necessarily a directive for what those are going to be. But yeah, there would be. There would be the standard sampling procedures on your OSSF. Let's just take the secondary, okay? And whether it be a grab sample in the pump tank or whether it's a sampling spigot, that's already there, part of that procedure that you have to have there for your standard 40 compliance. Okay, so it might be the recommendation, the primary recommendation here is to say, let's look at the NSF ANSI standard 350 system if you're not sure how to approach this thing. Okay, if reuse has got to be part of your life and how you do it and how you go at it, I think they've spent a little bit more time looking at that. Okay, so like I said a while ago, we don't have time to spend that much time on it. Okay, we're going to just kind of give it a little bit of mic time here, but go by booth 422 and have a look at what they've got. Now, here is the only couple of pictures I do have in this thing. Okay, this is a system that comes from across the big pond out there. Okay, basically comes from Germany, and this is one of these systems that has been gone through the NSF 350 standard. That was presented and everything, and I just found it interesting the amount of what's going on with this thing, and things that go on with it. And quickly, I'll just show you here. This is a treatment pack system here, and this is storage. Okay, so you have a tank in your storage unit. Internally to these things, and they're using basically they'll call it a moving bioreactor. They're putting air in there. They're breaking down BOD. They're using biologics and stuff like that. Kind of sounds like a secondary treatment system to me. Okay, and I just found it interesting. And here's what it looks like in a basement of a good German home. Okay, with a reuse system in it. Okay, not pushing it one way or the other. So don't get mad at me for I'm not advertising to these guys. I'm just saying this is what somebody else's idea of a Graywater reuse system would be. Okay, and it's basically making this water usable to the point of bringing it into the home, using it and those kind of things outside of drinking. Okay, I'd ask some questions on that, but I don't know the answer for that for sure. I mean, I'm just showing you there, okay, there are things out there, okay, on the market. And these are high-end systems. But do know that in those other states, Texas is not the only one we're looking at that they're in, and that other states are doing the same thing with the reuse, or with the Graywater. And they're just not doing, they're not having to do a whole lot to it to make it usable, okay? And I just found it interesting. And here's what it looks like in a basement of a good German home, okay, with a reuse system in it. Okay, not pushing it one way or the other, so don't get mad at me for I'm not advertising to these guys. I'm just saying this is what somebody else's idea of a Graywater reuse system would be. Okay, and it's basically making this water usable to the point of bringing it into the home, using it, and those kind of things outside of drinking. Okay, I'd ask some questions on that, but I don't know the answer for that for sure. I mean, I'm just showing you there. Okay, there are things out there, okay, on the market, and these are high-end systems. But do know that in those other states, Texas is not the only one we're looking at that they're in, and that other states are doing the same thing with the reuse, or with the Graywater, and they're just not doing, they're not having to do a whole lot to it to make it usable. Okay.